Okay, so basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to design this hammock style couch. I mean, not couch, sorry. Hammock style chair, where you can see this is like a mesh, and there's, in addition to that mesh, there are some pipes, which are actually swept pipes. So the way I would do this is pretty simple. We start a new drawing, and we want to select those 4 points for the mesh. As you can see, there's each point which would be the end of this mesh here. Move that over. So we create a location for all 4 points. Now, based upon your own preference, you can decide what location you want and how wide and how deep you want the chair to be. I'm just going to have a point that is 30 inches apart, give or take. I do a 30-inch depth to it, so I'm doing a rectangle pretty much, or a square, with the backing as a square as well. So if I looked at an isometric view, it's pretty much like a flat chair. There's nothing special about it. It's kind of very simple. Now, to get to this shape here, we have our important points, which is the top 2 and bottom 2, because those are the 4 corners that we're going to be using. I created the back edge as a reference for myself for this design. Now, once you're happy with this part, as you see it, what you want to do is play with the UCX. So we need to change the UCX to be based on what view we are looking at the part. So if we want to draw on this side here, I'll show you guys what I mean in just a second. So right now I'm drawing based on this area, X and Y, which is this flat area. Now if I rotate my X and Y so that my X is facing up and my Y is across, this surface area that I'm drawing on would be completely different. It would be basically just that. I'll be drawing on this surface on my X and Y. Whatever you do 2D drawings, you always want to have your X and Y at the top view. So Z is pointing at you, you are looking at X and Y. That's the view you will draw your 2D drawings. And that's the fundamental thing about X and Y. Now, if you select items that are 3D or isometric, be careful, because it might snap to a point that is no longer on the X and Y plane, but on a Z plane somewhere. Set that as rectangle. I could also show you guys a grid. Basically, this grid specifies how, if I do a drawing, that's where it's going to be placed. So you guys can see I'm rotating around. That's where my grid is. Now if I had X and Y facing this way, then you can see that my X and Y surface is here, which is completely different based on that drawing that I just created. So keep that in reference. That way you'll know which way to set up your UCX to draw the correct lines. So the first one I'm going to do is this side one. So basically this side is going to be this side of our chair. And then if I go back to my hammock, this would be these 2 points at this edge. So to do that, we create a 2D drawing. We use a spline. I prefer a spline. You can use an arc. You can use whatever you like. I'm going to use a spline because I'm going to make mine a little bit different than what I have in the other drawing. Now if you have OSNAP or ortho, that will actually, you want to have OSNAP on. Ortho is probably not beneficial at this point, since it's not going to help too much. As you can see, that plane is my X and Y. Now that I have this in a Z axis somewhere drawn, it snapped onto those endpoints, and that's what it created. So when you guys see errors, that's what happens. It snaps onto something that is no longer on the X and Y planes. Now to fix that, there's a few different ways. You can move the object so that its edge is aligned with the X and Y plane. The other option, which is probably the simpler one, is, if I can just find it, you define the origin, so you place it on the part that you have or a surface. So now that plane is exactly on that drawing that I created. Now I can go back to the spline once more and create that lovely spline. The nice thing about splines, you can adjust it and you can add additional points. So to do that, where is this? Oh, I hate this grid. So I don't like using grid because it gets in my eyes. You can add a fit point, or you can add, so by right clicking on the part, selecting it, right clicking, go to the spline, you can add a kink, and that's probably what you're looking for. A kink is that blue point. I clicked exit, so I did not accept the kinks. Spline, add kinks. You add a few if you wish. If you don't like them, you don't have to, but that would let me adjust my design even more. Now if I want to keep it consistent from both sides, I just make a copy from this one, use my copy command, and I copy it over to the other side. Finally, to adjust the top, to make it a curve here, I can also again use spline, or I can use a arc. The tricky part about this one is I want to make it a nice consistent point at the center. So I can use a reference line based on the center point or midpoint of that horizontal line. Using ortho, I can move down, giving me a third reference point. So when I do the spline, I have an end point, a midpoint, and a third reference point. And here I don't need to worry about too much about the X and Y coordinates because it has all 3 points. It doesn't snap onto something, and you're not clicking on space, so you don't have to worry about that too much. Once I'm happy with that shape, which of course I can adjust, I can work with the bottom shape. Now the option for the bottom is I can use this same shape as up here or design my own. Again, I'm going to just pick a line, use the spline command, and I have finally my final part. I prefer using copy and keeping a copy of my original design, so that way I know what I was working with when I create the actual mesh or the surface. So from here I would move forward to going to my mesh tab. I would add, there's a command for modeling mesh edge surface. It even shows you an example of how this is done. Select that, you would select all 4 parts, and it will create a lovely mesh for you. You could accept it as is, or you can modify, because now it's a mesh. You can change it to only select edges. You can select the center edges, and using the move command, you can either move them out, move them in, make them deeper, so forth. Now this is completely different from what I designed previously, but hey, gotta try something new. And let's say when you're happy with the design, which whatever it may be, actually I'm gonna do something unique. You can select more than one surface as you wish. It's pretty simple. Now again, use your filters if you're having problems of selecting an edge or a surface. That would help you get to what you're looking for. And using dimensions instead of snapping or clicking on the screen also saves you from snapping onto anything by accident. So you end up with something more unique and desirable. I mean, just just like any other mesh, even though this is a surface, you can still make it smooth by going to your smooth more, and you can smooth up to, I believe, 4 smoothnesses. So it becomes a nice smoothed object. It could be, and you can also add a creases as needed to keep specified edges straight or vertical or horizontal. So once you're happy with this shape, whatever your shape may be, I recommend saving it, because working with meshes causes problems. We all know that by now. So save your work, and we're going to add in the pipes next. Alright, so let's say you want to add additional surfaces, or an actual surface that you want to modify on this. I don't know how to say that. So the easiest way of doing that, if you go into your mesh tabs, there's a split face option. So if you use that split face option, you can select one of these faces and you can draw a cut. Of which direction you want. Let me just ortho. And now, except I had my UCX the wrong direction, so I gotta change that a little bit. Alright, so again, you have to go to mesh, split faces, you select a face you want to split. Before that, you should probably make sure that you have your UCX set up the way you prefer, which I did once more. So for this one, I want to work from the top view, so I'll make sure my UCX is in the top. I changed it from the angle before. Okay, I changed that to... So, let me go back to the world. Okay, so I am on top. I'm going again, mesh, split surface. I select the surface I want to split, and I can just draw out based on my own preference. I'm going to change our ortho off, how I want my edges to split. So now you can see it split it at a weird angle. Now it did that because we're smooth. If we weren't smooth, it wouldn't create that issue. So I'm gonna undo that for once more. So I'm gonna unsmooth this object. There we go. Now I'm gonna add that split on that surface. I'm gonna select the edges to the edge, corner to corner, so it cuts it perfectly at an angle, as you can see here in the preview. And I do the same thing on the other side, corner to corner, and it cuts it. So now I have two of these edges that are triangles. I'm going to select both, and I'm going to pull them down. Or you can do whatever you like with pull them up. Maybe pull them back. Pull them up. I usually go by the distance on the side so I don't snap onto anything by accident. So looking at my mouse, it says 5.5 inches. I type in 3, and that looks like a good fit for me. Now if I want to adjust additional ones, I can do that as well. I must have misselected something. Anyways, that's how you would add a split and modify your part. So once you guys are happy with that overall design that you created, what you can do is now add the actual structure that holds it. There's a few different ways you can do that. We can just create a circle. So I'm going to use a circle about, since I don't have anything specified on sizes on this drawing, well actually I do specify 30 inches. So I'm going to use a circle that's 1 inch. And since we have that path, that spline we used before, I could use that as my path. So I can make a copy of that. And in addition to that, I could add additional spline that would help me dictate how far the leg is going. So and also the returning leg at the back. Now if you want to make sure that the floor is exactly aligned, you can create a reference line and use that to help you guide your spline. Now when you want to put these splines into one single spline, what you want to do is use the pedit command for this. So to do that, you type in pedit, you select M for multiple, you select all segments or all parts, you type in yes, so you enter for default, and J for join. And that will create one line. Now you may need to adjust some points to make it more radius as needed. Once you're happy with the overall shape, what you can do is use the sweep command. So under extrude there is a sweep. You select the circle you drew somewhere on the drawing, and then you select the circle, enter, and then you select the path. And that creates your spline. So I have that. I'm going to copy over my actual chair, move my leg to it, now if you feel like you need to adjust your chair, you can do that as well. Then if you're happy with the whole overall design, you could just make the mesh smoother, give it a final design look, or you can add a thickness to it. Since it's a surface, you should be able to give it a thickness. Pressed here. And then once you're happy with the overall design for that, we can even show you guys how to add material. So the way you would add material would be basically go into your render tab, browse materials, or material browser. You would have a pop-up menu coming out like that, and you can research for material that you would like to use, or you can go into this tab here where it says home, Autodesk library, the basics, and I'm looking for fabric, something red for that, and something different for the actual pipes or supports. So once you're overall happy with that design, what you can do is go and render it. Oh, I went to the website. And that will give you a rendered image of the part. Now I could have adjusted that spline to fit the chair more accurately, closely, or I can also go back. Well, now it's a solid, but I should have went back and stretched it back to the surface. So sometimes it's easier to work with the actual structure first and add the material, or the other way around. Both will work. So if I was going to do it the other way around, I would create a overall design. So if I go to the bottom, so I'm going to use a spline. making sure my base is the same height. With a solid segment. There we go. And then I make a copy on the z-axis. Go back to that mesh modeling mesh edge option. Oh, actually I don't have the edge on this side here, so I'll have to copy one of these. And now I can go back to my mesh, select the objects, I can select the edges if I want to modify this a little bit by pulling it up. Oh, wrong way. And I'm smoothing it more to create my final outlook. Create a quick copy of it. And I can go back to adding my material. This one's be a little bit more futuristic. So now if I go into my render, and I hit the render, I get a futuristic baby chair. I can actually get a better view of this. Just like that.